Join us virtually, that is. We have the pleasure of having with us the president of the Africa Table Tennis Federation, Wahid Oshodi, joins us tonight on the show. Greetings to you, sir. Thanks for finding time to be with us on the show tonight.
Thank you very much, Yemi. It's a pleasure to be here after such a while now. Thank you very much.
All right, I guess congratulations are still in order.
Yes, thank you. We're receiving all those gracefully and gracefully as well. It's been a hectic 2-3 weeks, and but it's good to be back home with, you know, the election done with, and then we can look forward to getting to work now.
All right, let me throw this at you. There's a comment attributed to you that I read somewhere, and that's how I want to start off the conversation tonight. You saying that it is your dream to make table tennis number 3 in Nigeria. So I said I was going to start off like that and ask you, how do you intend to do that?
Well, I mean, I think first of all, somebody was paraphrasing what I said, but there's really no fear in us saying we would like, you know, everybody knows for sure in Nigeria, in Africa, that football is way ahead, you know, the biggest sport we have in Africa. And we all love it, but, you know, there's room for a lot of other sports to come into play. And then you have, of course, you have basketball, which is growing rapidly, especially with the intervention of the NBA in Africa. There's athletics, which is, you know, we all know how strong that is. But I think, you know, if we go back, table tennis was always a big sport in Africa. It was, well, in Nigeria, for example, it was very close to top stars when I was young, were as popular as the top football stars. And so what we need to do, we know it is an enormous sport. Everybody has played table tennis. It's probably the only sport that you get 90% of the population have played at one time or the other, no matter how young or how old you are. So the important thing, like we think now, is that how you take such a big sport and make it, you have to innovate to make it into a lucrative sport, commercial sport. And that's what I think we haven't managed to do over the years. We have to make it, it has to be part entertainment, part sport. And that's what World Table Tennis is doing that now. And I think we can learn from them and bring that to Africa as well.
All right. I know now you're thinking globally, you're thinking Africa, but people will want to ask, okay, what are the plans for Nigeria? Of course, we would love to feel your impact more, even though your mandate is bigger than whatever happens in Nigeria. But a lot of people will want to ask, now that you're there, we've always felt your presence home, but now occupying this kind of position, how much of an impact will table tennis in Nigeria have with you being at the helm?
You know, we've always, even once I left as president of the Nigerian table tennis, we've always worked closely with them, with the ATTF. We've brought events to Lagos. We've taken the players out to top events. We've managed to bring in training sessions and things like that. And this gives us a wider opportunity to do that. Being the president, seeing the total scope of things, then you can easily assess what help you can be to the federation in Nigeria and what the federation in Nigeria needs to be doing to tap into resources that exist at the ATTF level, the ITTF level. Like I said, we've managed to do that fairly well over the last few years, but this is time for, you know, more serious work. And so it's having an insight into what they have out there that they can use in Nigeria. So I'm always close to home. It's the work we did in the NTTF is really what has piloted us to becoming president of Africa Table Tennis anyway. So it wouldn't make sense not to do more of that going down the line.
All right. There's no way we talk about table tennis and not talk about grassroots development. And it gladdens my heart to talk about something that I know you're also involved in, talking about the mixed table tennis championship that, of course, started today. And why I'm putting this in context, the issue of discovering talents, we should be at the front burner for most sporting federations. And now that you might have a different opinion, but looks like there's a kind of a gap in terms of those that we have now and those who we're thinking might take over from them. And that's why, like I said, it gladdens my heart seeing, grassroots tournaments springing up like the one I just mentioned.
Yeah, I think you're right to an extent. I think over the last couple of months, the federation itself has done well. They've had a couple of tournaments for the youngsters. And when I say young, extremely young, under 15, under 13, with their Funkoya tournament they had. And of course, we're very happy to see probably the greatest player of all time, Atonda Musa, coming home to do the same thing, create a tournament for these youngsters, and hopefully we discover some of the stars. But the mixed team event fulfills two things. This is a new event for the ITTF. It's a new innovation. It started last year, and then I think the second edition is in about 4 weeks in China again. So this is the first time this is being tried out outside of China. And, in Africa, the first time, and it's very important for us that we get on this train very quickly. And it also helps us develop. I was pleasantly surprised to see that we had, I think 28, 29 teams, which one wouldn't have thought we could do, and all coming from all over the country, Kaduna, South, Southeast, teams from there. And I stopped there today just, to spend a couple of hours. I ended up spending 6 hours. The young talents we have in this country, it's unbelievable. But of course, they need help. They need coaching. You can see the talent. You can see that they have the potential, but we need to capture them young. And this is what tournaments like this do for us. So we're very pleased. We're very grateful to the sponsors. This is the kind of thing we need to be doing regularly so we discover the players. But of course, the second half of that for the NTTF is also getting the coaching, getting that into place, and hopefully they can find the funding to do this. And we as the ATTF or the ITTF can always look for ways to help them and meet them halfway.
All right. As somebody who has a bird's eye view, I also want to ask this, and I'm very sure my guest in the studio will say a thing or two about that when it's time for him to say that. Growing up, I know you've had to answer this in different forums, but for me, growing up, you see table tennis tables everywhere, across the streets. It was very close to football, because the next thing that was very easy to set up was, after football, was table tennis. And for table tennis, you probably just need your table and 2 people ready to play. Football, you have to gather a few. But at some point, it disappeared. Can we get back to those days where, you're walking in the street corner, you're walking everywhere, you'll be seeing table tennis? In terms of the interest, it seems, you may also disagree, maybe there was an apathy at some stage. I don't know if it was, but something must have happened to make those days I saw growing up disappear, and what you have now.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is the communal effect it had. That everybody played around the neighborhood, and you're right. We had tables at street corners, tables everywhere. But it's like a lot of things. Society has moved on quite away from that. It was the same with football. We played on the streets and we played everywhere, but you don't see too much of that going on now. Also important that you have to remember is that you're talking of the Lagos of, I'm just going to be kind to you and say 20, 30 years ago, but for me, maybe 40, 50 years ago, there are 20 plus million people in Lagos. Lagos is a small city. You really can't have that. And I'm not talking only about Lagos, all across the Federation. And then all these things cost money now. It's more expensive to put the tables there. And then, there are issues of security. There are loads of issues around that. But the reverse of that is that you need to set up avenues for the kids to play in schools, community centers, and we're still not doing enough of that. And that's the honest truth. If you get these kids playing at 5, 6, 7, you'll find those who have talent. We know in a country with the size of Nigeria, the most talent must abound. But we need to do a lot more. But like I said, it comes back to the issue of funding, even community funding. You get the community to put a table, around the corner, and somebody manages it and helps the kids play and all that. We're not doing enough of that. But also on grounds that they don't have the kind of money. The NTTF doesn't have that kind of money. Even state association, Lagos State Table Tennis Association, for example, is one of the stronger associations. There's a limit to what you can do with the kind of money they have.
All right, let me throw this one in. Probably might be like my parting shot, if unless I'm told to go on. You talked about getting the young ones at an early age. There are people who feel there's a disconnect between the way we run the structure for schools. It's not easily adaptable for young ones who also want to be involved in sports. And so, like, again, from somebody that has a bird's eye view, what could be the solution across board, not just table tennis? You talked about times where street corners, a lot of football fields, you don't have all of those things anymore, but you still have children going to schools. Then you have a situation where the two cannot marry. So what can be done to ensure that the kids, while growing up, don't get to an age where it's difficult to develop interest in some particular sports because they've passed the time where they could really learn and have interest?
That's a valid point. So you need these kids playing sports right from primary school. Once they leave home to go to school, you need them playing at some level these sports. And it's important that we also think that, I think education, and that is now being talking about the structures of governance. You have the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Sport across all the 36 states, AFCT, and they must come together. They must come together to develop enough physical education, like we used to call it in our time, PE, enough playing time, but you need to work together. The Ministry of Education can't do it on its own, and I tend to see that a lot in schools, that the Ministry of Education, because they, as they say, they own the children, they're their children, and we understand that, but you need to work with the Ministry of Sport. We had a solution to that when I was Commissioner for Sports in Lagos, and I think the Ministry of Sports ran sports in Lagos, even in the schools, but we worked hard with the Commissioner for Education. We set up, joint teams, and we had those fantastic tournaments in those days, the Dawn Games and all sorts, but we got the kids playing very early, and that is what has developed. And honestly, if you get it right from the start, and I think, we had people 10, 12 years ago, some of them were in the Olympics this year. They started out playing school sports in Lagos from their early secondary school days, and now they're in the Olympics 10, 12 years later. That's the way to do it. When we talk of, Nigeria, we like to talk of podium performance. Podium performance starts right from school. It's not 10 years after school. That's too late. You must start from school. 8, 9 years old, you see these kids taking part in sport, running around in a relaxed way, but at the same time being looked after by a competent professional, and then that's the way forward.
All right, you've given us a good template, and I hope that people who can make it happen are listening. But my final question to you will be, if we can get it right with funding, if we can get it right with some of those steps here and there before we can start having things like podium finish, if we can get all of that right, how long do you think it will take us to become a dominant force as a country, not just a country with a few individuals on top, but a dominant force in Africa or globally? How long, if we get all of those things right, how long will it take us, by your estimation?
Well, I think we're on the right track in terms of that. I think we can do a lot more, but we're on the right track. 4 years, 8 years, it depends on what you're talking about. In Africa, I think we just won it for the first time in a long time, the African Men's Team Championships. Gold for the men, silver for the women. But you know what was exciting about that was we had 3 players in each team out of 5 under 19. And that is what we need to be doing. Aruna Quadri probably won more Olympics. There are not many people at that level, at the level he is. But if we continue like this, in 4 years, I can assure you that not only can they be a dominant force in Africa, they will be a dominant force in Africa. At the junior level now, I think we are. For the men, boys rather, we're stronger than Egypt. For the girls, there's still a lot of work to do. We need to increase the pool of girl players and find ways to do that. But another 8 years, you could have an African Olympic champion in table tennis. And that is, That is a very difficult thing to do, but I think we can do that if we continue the way we're doing and we find more money to do what we need to do.
All right. Anytime, Wahid Oshodi, I want to thank you for your time on the show today, and all the best in your new role as the president of the African Table Tennis Federation.
Thank you very much, Jamie. It's always good talking to you.